Ready. All right, it is 9:01 on December 9th. I will now call to order this special meeting of the Grand County Commission. Present are Commissioners Bill Winfield, Tricia Dean, Mike McCurdy, and myself, Jacques Hadler, in the chambers. We also have Commissioner Kevin Walker online. We have our clerk, Gabriel Wojtek, and our county administrator, Mark Tyner, as well as our associate administrator, Quinn Hall. I will now, first order of business is commission member disclosures. Any members of this commission have anything that they need to disclose that pertains to this agenda? Mike.
In budgeting, we're talking about the sheriff's department, why it works for the sheriff's department.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything they need to disclose? And it looks like we've just been joined by Commissioner McGann on Zoom. All right, anything to disclose on the meeting, Mary? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And yes, I need to disclose that my son works for Sand Flats Recreation Area.
Thank you. All right. We have on our agenda, the first item that we're going to get to is our budget workshop. And for that, I will turn it over to Clerk Wojtek as well as Budget Director Stephen Vowles.
All right, thank you, Chair. So, what we're hoping to accomplish today, there was a most current draft of the 25 proposed budget and the 24 amendments posted on the 7th. That's included in the agenda packet, and so we're sort of working hard to keep these budgets updated and reflecting the most current state of affairs as it relates to corrections and any sort of discussion that's been made thus far. And then Stephen and I will start with a sort of a general discussion sheet, sort of our tentative budget position for the present day. I'll get that up here on the screen and get rolling. Really today we can glean from you all, the commission, sort of a firm nod as to what we want to be including in this budget that will be voted upon as it currently stands next Tuesday on the 17th. And then so we can sort of get really close to where we're at. Obviously, there's going to be minor tweaks here and there, but we'd really like to come out of this meeting with a pretty firm idea of what we want in or out. So this is the document that we're going to work off of to lead our discussion. The first item being just the general assumption that that we've talked about, that Fund 10 includes a provision of a budgeted draw from the fund balance that's supported by historical precedent. We've in the past budgeted a draw of 803,000 or 800,000, and that's to account for what is inevitably an underspend of what we originally budgeted for in expenses. We've talked about increasing that budgeted draw in order to account for needed expenses in the budget to 1 million. And for a couple frame of references here, in 2024, the current year, for the opening budget, we budgeted a draw of $803,063, and currently, as it stands, with updated revenues and expenses for the 2024 amendment that's currently included, we're set to contribute $424,000 to the fund balance. So that, as you can see, that's kind of a differential of about 1.2 million, and so that represents that amount, 1.2 million in this current year, that we ended up underspending the original budget, so to speak. Additionally, I did following up on that, I did a little bit more underspend analysis as requested. see if I can. Get that bigger. Yeah, oh yeah, please switch to the underspending analysis tab. And so just this is a snapshot of what the original opening budget was on these years. I ended up omitting 2019 because that was a year that we implemented a property tax increase, and so I didn't think it was that illustrative to the sort of the current state of affairs, at least as it relates to the last period of time. And so we have an original opening budget you can see on the top row. And then and then the actual spend row is exactly that at the end of the year, or even into the following months of the new year as expenses were accrued back, and finally the cape was set. That was the amount that we actually spent. And that actual spend also includes contributions to the fund balance. And so that's just money that is put into savings. So in certain respects, that doesn't really reflect an actual spend. That just reflects what we put into savings that's included into that spend. So I created a row that's called adjusted actual spend. That basically is the actual spend minus those contributions to the fund balance, which gets to that bottom line row in bold, which amounts to versus the original budget, what the actual, I guess, underspend ended up being, at the end of the year versus the original budget. So as you can see, the numbers are financial. But ultimately, of course, we've received federal funding, large amounts of federal funding in this time period. However, that the amount of this overall, that bold row accounts for about. That adds up to somewhere around $16 million, and certainly the amount of federal funding we've received, would be no more than 8 million of that 16 million. So I think that this presents a further strengthening of the position of budgeting a draw of 1 million from the fund balance for 2025. And yeah, I'm hoping that we can sort of etch that into the 2025 proposed budget. I'll open up any conversation that might be needed moving forward.
Looks like we've done a great job of putting money away for a rainy day, or a snowy one, as the case may be, over the last 5 years.
So Gabe, just to put this in context, when previously we discussed the overspend, your initial analysis was just looking at payroll expenses, I think, and that's what that $1 million figure was based on. And then I think some of us, including I think both me and Bill, said it would be nice to kind of look at the full budget instead of just payroll to see, what direction that might push the 1 million figure. And what you're saying here is if we consider a lot of other stuff, including the federal money, then the underspend has been even larger than 1 million. Is that a good summary?
Yes, thanks for that summary, and that is my conclusion.
I'm comfortable with the 100 million in this budget. Billions. 8 meatballs. Yeah.
There's coffee available, Evan, if you just rolled out of bed.
I'm good.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like we've.
I'm good as well. Yes.
And to be clear, this is not an action taking place right now. We're just sort of trying to get a feel, taking the temperature to include in the tentative for an actual vote next week. But it will help us with our establishing our balanced budget.
Right, of course.
I think I've stated previously, but I will for the record again, I'm uncomfortable with it. And we can go further into depth as we go into the budget, but I don't think that we should be going that direction personally.
Okay, and so the next item, number 2 on this discussion sheet, is just a summary of where we're at with reserve fund balances, Fund 10, currently sitting at 10.6 million, and then Fund 34 capital projects fund balance at 6.2. And those, so the funds in that Fund 34, traditionally we've transferred fund balance from Fund 10 to, so that we don't exceed statutory limits into Fund 34, but they could be considered fungible, or in other words, Fund 34 funds could be transferred back into Fund 10.
Are we bumping up against statutory limits in Fund 10?
No, we monitored and checked that, and we have it's not too much room, but we have enough. I can't quote the actual amount.
So we're basically, our savings account is close to the maximum of what we're allowed.
Currently in Fund 10, I think we're getting fairly close, but even with the transfer of 424 this year, we're still okay there.
And Gabe, do you mind speaking to, so kind of one of the things that I was concerned about is, how, what's the kind of the usual process for a county to have as far as reserves? Is it a certain percent of your operating budget? And I know that you looked into that a little bit. I tried to look into it a little bit. It is a difficult research project.
Yeah, I had a staff person do quite a bit of research just to see what sort of resources are out there that could sort of provide a rule of thumb.
Right.
And really all that I could find is that applying a blanket standard in that regard is really hard, because every community has realities and needs that
Right.
are really specific to each community.
Right.
And so ultimately it would be a matter of, a financial consultant or an in-house financial expert doing more of an in-depth analysis of breaking down and analyzing and scenario planning what the critical imminent projects are that are high ticket items that the county needs, and what those costs would be for those over a short and long term time horizon. And so I will say that there is definitely we're in the process now of this capital facilities committee that we formed, and I think that we can get a lot of traction now on sort of managing this dynamic between this growing reserve balance that we've seen and this obviously heavily growing list of facility needs, stormwater mitigation needs. Those are the two that come to mind most, which are high ticket items that obviously aren't going to be paid for in cash. And so as you know, as those projects might become closer to actualization, what are the financing options for those projects, and what is the financial impact of that, over 3 years, over 5 years, over 10 years, and how does that relate to the fund balance that we're carrying?
Okay.
So it's quite a
It's complex. Right. I get that.
In that facilities group and that overview, is there close to like a goal savings? I mean, specifically for a county building and other needs around that, or is that still early in the process?
Yeah, I don't think that I think that there needs to be more work to be done to identify what maybe might be the most critical imminent needs for the things that we would really actually expect to happen in the next 2 or 3 years, and then really get a feel for what the price is on those things and how we would fund them. So yeah, I think it goes along with the same conversation. I think that there's a lot of work to be done in that regard.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'd like to go back to that just a little bit. I know for the last couple of years that I've been a commissioner here, the current leadership has discussed the fact that this savings was being built up for a future building, whether it be public safety or for the commission. And so that's one reason why I'm reluctant to dip into it now, to grow government at a time when I keep reminding people that we're showing negative growth here. I just want to be on the record here that there should be a hold on any department that is trying to expand in any way that is not essential to flooding or to services that we have right now in the county. We've got to be going the other direction, and I might be a broken record on that point, but I'm going to keep bringing it up. So.
That's strong strongly disagree with that. I think there's plenty more departments out there that are extremely meaningful, and I don't think we necessarily need to expand some of those, but I think staying the course is really important. Not putting all our eggs in one basket, as it were, but having a more holistic look at the entire county and the spending therein. I mean, we've done a really, really good job of saving money the last 5 years. I mean, this is awesome. If this was my personal bank account, I'd be so happy. And as it is, I mean, my wife and I don't make a ton of money. Our income fluctuates from year to year, depending on business and other things. We rely on like the county, on a number of different sources. We have a few small businesses and side hustles, and we kind of put everything together. Some years we're able to save a lot, and some years, a couple years ago, I had the unfortunate circumstance of having a very bad bike crash and ending up maxing out our massive deductible on our health claim, and we weren't able to save, and we actually dipped into our savings. But since we're good at savings and we had that nice cushion, it didn't affect us too much. In the last couple of years, we've been healthy and everything's been good, and we've been able to maintain that. And I think that's a good example of where we're at with things, and I'm comfortable with where we are. We have talked about using money to build buildings. I think that's the capital fund right there. We've managed to increase that significantly every year. Our general fund is bumping up against statutory limits for that, and dipping in a very small percentage. I mean, we're only talking about 1% or 2% of that entire savings account. Essentially, I think that's well within our scope. Trish, you had your hand up.
Bill, I don't know where you're getting this negative growth, because the next line item shows, we're projecting for, it's minimal growth, but it is a growth. So I'm not sure where you're getting this negative growth statement from.
Got it from our budget director. And I do know that Mr. Walker then came in and re-looked at it a different way and was able to spin it to a positive growth. But regardless, 0.5 does not even meet inflation. So I would say that it doesn't qualify as positive growth until you get above the inflation rate. So to me, that's still negative, and we can argue back and forth over it, but there's no reason to be expanding government. And I disagree with your analogy, Jacques, about your savings account and that whole thing. That's not an argument for expanding government. To expand government, it needs to be for critical resources right now, not for any other reason.
I think your version of critical resources is very subjective. Mike?
Yeah, my points were over.
Okay.
I guess, to that point, I would be curious when we're looking at this. I believe most departments actually are having a reduction, and that if we are concerned about expansion, I would be interested in looking at where those budgets are going up more than just the inflation. So
Let's keep moving.
Yep.
yeah, I don't expect that answer right now. But that's,
I think it's a good point. No, I'm not trying to.
Jacques, I think Mary has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mary. I missed you.
And I'm also trying to put my hand up, but I can't figure out how.
Okay.
So
Sorry,
I know being on Zoom, it's hard to see and recognize hand raises, but my recommendation is, it has been obvious throughout this entire budget process that there's some real philosophical differences in moving forward, and the joy of having such a great fund balance. I think to be expedient and spending our time wisely, that we should just recognize that we have a difference in opinion and move forward with that understanding without spending a great deal of time in debating our point of view.
Thanks, Mary. Kevin?
Yeah, just briefly. I think a lot of what I wanted to say, Jacques said very well. So I'll try to be brief. I do think, I mean, of course, we don't want to spend money unnecessarily, because we do have a lot of financial needs, and I think most people in Grand County want a lean county government, and I think we do have a lean county government, but it is possible for it to be too lean and for us to neglect to fund things that we could afford to do and would really help the community. So I think we need to take kind of a middle of the road approach to budgeting. I don't understand. I think our fund balance and the capital funds are highest they've ever been. The county's probably in the best financial position that it ever has been. And so that doesn't seem like the time for like extreme belt tightening. I think it just means continuing along the sort of prudent, moderate belt tightening things that we've been doing the past few years. And I especially wanted to repeat Jacques' remark that the purpose, sometimes your income fluctuates, and the purpose of savings, one of the purposes is to insulate your spending from the up and down of savings. So if I do support dipping maybe just 1 or 2% into the fund balance if we've got some difficult issue to resolve. Thanks.
Mary, is your hand still up, or did you just not take it down?
I forgot to take it down. I apologize.
Okay, great. The last thing I'd point out is that we've accrued this awesome savings account into the last 4 or 5 years of what everyone I think would consider to be a pretty progressive commission. And as Bill's pointed out many times, we have a new commission coming in. I think the priorities will change, and I think that commission will also be equally adept at its saving per year. I see no reason that that's going to change, and I'll let you guys get on with it.
Okay, so that'll segue into the next sort of, the kind of the meat of this discussion today, which would be considering yet outstanding budget items that aren't included in the tentative budget, that are also identified for the most largely, maybe not entirely, but maybe with the exception of 1 or 2 as sort of one-time sorts of costs. And so I think that's important to identify if we're talking about pulling from savings, because I think we want to avoid getting into a position, or it would be my recommendation to avoid getting into a position of taking on loads of costs that are paid out of savings that will have to carry over year to year. I don't think that that's a advantageous position. I think we would all agree with that. However, there could be an argument to be made for a small expenditure of savings for what could be considered more one-time costs. So moving on here, number 3, we've talked about the revenue growth projection. We've got that settled. There's an interest allocation policy that was presented and talked about by the treasurer, and so we're sort of accounting for some interest that hasn't been yet fully allocated to the general fund. We've got that done in a way that's appropriate to all the specific funds that have carried a savings in the general treasurer's fund. And then on to number 5, which is the current general fund position for the 2025 proposed budget is not a $1 million budgeted draw from the fund balance. Stephen and I, with the help of all of the hard work and attention and dedication of all the department heads, and in tightening up our budget, have managed to get to a point where our current 2025 proposed has budgets a $918,319 budgeted draw from the fund balance. So that's not $1 million actually, even though the analysis supports up to $1 million. And again, that would be a budgeted draw that would ultimately not be executed based on that sort of that analysis. So that's
Dave, do you mind?
Dave, not to cut in there. It says not to be expected to be drawn until 2025.
right. So that's kind of what I was just
At
saying.
the end of the year.
We budget to pull that out of the savings, but because of that underspend that we've always had due to compensation, due to other expenses that just aren't actualized in a year, that's been the convention here, is to budget that, but it doesn't end up getting spent.
Understand.
And so at this point, I'm going to pass it off to Stephen for starting at item number 6, and then we have a number of discussion items on number 7 regarding potential one-time costs and other potential costs that could be included that at this point would likely result in some draws from savings. So.
Okay, so item number 6 are things we've already discussed or tentatively agreed to, and 7 are other not agreed to. So we want to, actually on number 6, we should review them one more time and do a straw poll to see where where we're at, Ron, and
Sounds good.
I reckon.
Sure. All right. So should we go line item by line item on number 6? Okay. So COLA, salary and benefits cost related to the general fund. All in favor of?
Sorry, let me put more context.
Sorry.
This is, number 6 is included in the budget, so we have
It-
a balanced.
Yes,
budget
right.
with 9.
With all that in. Okay.
Yeah, so this is in, but we
Just making it extra clear for everybody where we all stand.
This will be my ask Steven time. Should I be looking at the COLA salary and benefit costs related, seeing that my wife is a county employee?
I would assume not. I think I think a lot of us are attached to, friends, family, so work for the county. I would strongly think that wouldn't be, that you'd be able to vote.
Just
on
as a
But if you
note,
don't want to
Yeah.
vote, just to be on the safe side, I don't get really.
we're not voting in this,
I mean,
so I will
I
ask Steven,
think-
but
right, straw poll. I would like.
Straw poll.
Just a straw poll. Yeah, of course. Okay, so we'll go with that. So the COLA, all in favor of giving the COLA countywide? And that,
Yes.
let's see.
Yes.
That's COLA only, but that line item is just.
It says COLA, salary and benefits cost related to the general fund. So
So it's 2.5% salary increase plus its associated payroll taxes and benefit taxes.
Right. There's gonna be another-
Others Go up, some other things.
So
go up.
that's just a straw poll for a COLA.
Oh, yes.
yeah, just a COLA. Okay. All right. So it looks like everyone's in favor of that.
Okay.
Elected officials salary benefits adjustment. So that was again for the clerk, the recorder, the assessor, the help me out, treasurer. Is that right?
surveyor.
Surveyor. Okay. Yeah. All right. All in favor of that?
Yes.
Okay. All not in
Is
favor?
that-
Yes.
can you see me or should I say
can
yes
see-
or
I
is it hand?
I-
Okay.
I can
hand is
see.
good enough.
Yeah, go ahead.
And-
So the elected officials, so Mike and Bill, you guys are not in favor of that, is that right?
No, I think that essential only at this point.
So
Um,
say I'll come in that straw poll, just so I'm making.
The results, my calculation, the results were 5-2. Yeah. Yes, Mary? Oh, Mary,
I
just
was
say-
voting yes. I was voting yes. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
you
And
can just say,
I think it's-
you can just say yay if you want. I'll listen for you, Mary.
Okay,
again,
that'll be
um,
easier. I'll do that.
And we've discussed it before, but in case someone's just tuning in, when we say elected officials, we really mean elected officials except for the county attorney, the sheriff, and the commissioners, that they're not getting that increase.
The COLA does encompass all offices, but the salary adjustment does not include sheriff, attorney.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Abe. I was referring to the salary adjustment line. But yes, COLA's for everybody.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, just before we step into that other one, this is the one where I wanted a line by line on the new positions. I'm sorry that to re-ask again. There was some that were grant funded that I would have liked to know. I mean, it were a much lower cost than the whole positions. So I have a hard time saying yes to a total package, but I like the.
So, yeah, and Mike, I did, so on the December 3rd commission agenda in that packet, because I did heed that request, we didn't get to it in discussion because of the nature of the meeting running really long. But there is an updated document in the public hearing to solicit comments on the amended 24 budget and tentative 25 budget. There's a summary of reclassification requests and new position requests that were sort of tacitly approved by this commission and are included in the tentative budget. And so if you refer to that agenda packet for December 3rd, that'll give you that detail.
Thank you.
Are you good with that, Mike?
Yes, I'll go with that.
Okay, great. Okay, so that was the new position, salary and benefits related to the general fund. Who straw poll on that? Who is in favor of going forward with that? Medium. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Bill.
I'm in favor of the grant funded ones and I'm in favor of something for the assessor's office and for the engineer and the building department that are needing something as well as the recorder's office, but no other new positions.
The assessor stated again and again, she doesn't need a position next year. So
I appreciate you clarifying that, but regardless, there is still a need in that department based off of a huge amount of community input
I
over their
agree.
taxes, so.
But they're
I'll-
not ready to
Yeah,
move,
I'll let,
so
I'll let the
Well, the
assessor
community
make that
is.
I agree.
decision. Okay, you guys clear on that one? That was like a 5 for sure and 2 mostly.
Yes, thank you.
Um, is that fair to say mostly, Mike, or?
Yeah.
Okay,
That was the medium part.
great. All right, job reclassifications related to general fund.
Yes,
In favor of that?
yes,
Okay.
Yes.
And I believe some of those actually were saving us money. Isn't that correct? Like, for example, the special events coordinator being kind of distributed through the commission coordinator in the clerk's office. Okay. Bill?
And I see value in the fact that some of them are saving us money, but lumping them all together, it's hard to vote in favor of them.
But we've had multiple meetings where we've gone through them line item by line item, so it,
Right. I think everyone's aware of what
Yeah.
we're all at. Cool. Mike?
Yeah, if we were at a savings money point, would it be a negative 45,000?
I was just saying not every one. I was saying of those, some of them,
Because
at
some
least-
of them were negatives, and
of course.
I mean,
Yes, correct.
positives to us.
Positives and negatives.
Parentheses.
Okay, so you guys are clear on where we're at there. Great, thank you.
Okay, so that's a
That's a-
straw poll positive for all of these at the moment.
Yes, sir. And like you said before, Stephen, these are actually included in the budget that we have right now. Okay,
Balanced budget. with
Thank you.
these in.
Yep.
Okay. Well, now let's go to some of the outstanding items that have come up in our conversations with others. 2 items for
Can
the
you scroll just a
EMS.
little more so we can see the whole list?
Sorry.
Thank you.
We did talk about paying the,
it's actually, we just scooted off the
reduce
page.
it back
There-
down, but
Yeah, you might have to.
what's that?
Is that the bottom of the sheet?
Yeah, I gotta figure out how to get and see the whole list. All right, well. In Google worksheets, I get 2 choices here.
All right. I can.
scroll down just a little. There you go.
And
Or-
before
or-
you stop moving everything, Andy just emailed us. I don't know if everyone just saw it. That is not a 30K line item. That is a
Oh, great.
21,500
Great.
line item.
Which line?
The 30K.
Off-road ambulance repair.
Off-road ambulance repair.
Number line 21,
Okay.
Yeah.
21.5.
21.5.
He did get some donations of the labor, but not the actual
Nice.
parts to fix it.
Good job, Andy.
Okay, well, so the EMS, we all discussed that. Don't you want to sprout all the 92 and 30?
All right.
One by one.
Yeah, let's do it one by one. So who's in favor of the 92 for the annual ambulance payment?
yes,
Okay, that looks like it's a unanimous yes. And then the off-road ambulance repair.
yes,
That one passes too.
Do we have a conversation if they did get the off-road ambulance, they were going to expand those service hours, or are they gonna keep the lower service hours?
I can't recall. Evan, do you remember?
Yeah, I believe that, it would allow the shoulder season to staff the extra ambulance. And, because instead of using repair funds, they were gonna use, yeah, I think that it's not an exact match because, anyway. I believe it would cover the shoulder season. And then obviously having the off-road ambulance would allow them to respond to places like Whitewash, Buffalo River, and White River. Oh, I know Andy's about to hear this, but when I get hurt in the sticks, better show up.
When you get hurt, where, Mike?
When I get hurt in the sticks, ideally Andy's
at HQ.
Yeah. I want Andy's.
But believe me, Mike, with our histories, I think I'm a lot more in danger of that than you
Yeah.
are probably.
Yeah.
Should have seen where I was yesterday. All right,
We're just making a correction here. Just
Perfect, thank you.
a second.
What I understood with the ambulance was that by doing this, they're going to be able to maintain their services. That was my understanding.
I think it was.
yeah, yeah.
We're just making a correction and we'll jump back into it.
No worries, thank you. Take your time. Love muffin.
No, how in-house made?
Really? Wow, looks professional. Lucky man. Maybe you got banana nut or
Okay,
she's chocolate chip. Yeah.
actually, let me come back and see where that. All right, so next up is the sheriff's office tier 2 URS contribution. I don't know if I need to remind you. You will remember what that was, right? I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah.
And some of the next will, but I want to clarify this ask that, well, the ask is out there, 82K. And I have worked with Sheriff James and Mike Palmer for the last week. And they want to make it clear, and I'm happy to justify that they came in on their original budget at 97%. And they've actually, in the last week, carved out, given an additional 100,000 and even suggested another opportunity. You'll see the next item is maybe a one-time cost of $140,000 to save some ongoing cost. But that's just up right now, their budget. I mean, we're in a balanced budget, but I do want to just say the sheriff's office has cut costs to try to justify for this ask of.
Understood. Yeah. And thanks very much, Shannon and Jameson, for your efforts in that regard.
And they've been contributing to this in the past, just out of other funds.
I'm not sure about that.
I don't think so. I think it just has been out.
This-
Stan, if you want to, you can speak to that if you want to come forward, please.
So the contributions come out of their checks. So the county contributes so much to the retirement, a certain percentage, the remaining percentage just comes out of their check.
So I guess my question was if this gets approved, would there be a current contribution that's reduced that balances that? Even if it's not the full 82, if the sheriff's matching or anything, is there another line that would go down?
So as far as where he cut costs, where he could to try and
Sure, yeah.
do this. But yeah, no, I mean, it's the ongoing, it's the 82,000.
But right now, that's 100% just coming from the deputy's check. Yeah.
Correct. That 82,000 is coming out of the tier 2 retirement staff.
That just state for the record. Yeah. My wife is not on tier 2, part of the sheriff's department. So.
Thanks, Mike.
So no, I mean, yeah, the staff would pay.
Yeah, I mean, kind of all along, I like seeing the sheriff manage their budget, and if this is a priority for him, and he's made those cuts elsewhere, I'm happy to see.
Yeah. And this is not currently in the budget, is that correct?
No.
Okay, so this would be,
So yeah, everything, the subtotal that you see down here, if whatever is approved here, right now we have a total outstanding of 669,820.
Okay.
We would have to fund that somehow.
okay.
If it was approved.
I would just mention the EMS has been going through a similar conversation, and one of the solutions that they found was that they had been matching like a health savings account contribution, and so they did some rearranging in other benefits to make this happen. And I'm sure that this is much more of an HR sort of thing than a budget committee sort of thing, but there was some little bit of a shell game that happened to connect the dots there. So
So the only remark I would make on the HSA, which I think is a good idea, EMS now, if that's what they're doing. Problem is, not everybody in the county's on the HSA, so they're on the standard traditional plan. They're not getting contributions. Those of us that are on a tier one, if you minus my HSA, I'm paying for their retirement. So I think it's a good idea, and I think in the future we can try and address some of these things. I think Jameson's thing is let's try and get this going. It's a good incentive. It brings, the idea is hopefully to bring some not as experienced people to younger side, because we hire higher. That's why you guys see our wages go up. It's because we have that 1-to-1, and they're also on the tier 2. So a lot of the tier 1, sorry. So the idea is to try and create these incentives to hire money younger and lower wage. That would balance it out to retire, to bring them down here. So people we're getting as applicants wise are all very senior. They're coming down from 1-to-1 because our starting wage is actually, I mean, it's within a lot of the other counties and states. It's actually less than what the state pays, but our cap is high. So that's why we're getting more experience. That's why you see our wages go up. It's because our salaries going up. It's because we're hiring at that higher wage to bring people here so they can work. The idea is to create this other incentive to help balance that out and see if it's people that want to start. That makes sense.
yeah, no, I definitely support the effort, and I'm in step with that. It's just kind of bringing up that there's probably in the future, not that we got to figure out right now, ways to kind of balance that.
Any other questions for me?
No, anyone else have a question for Shan? Thanks, Shan. Okay, should we straw poll on the sheriff's tier 2 URS contribution?
Yes,
Okay, all in favor? Yeah, Mary said yes. That looks like it's a go.
Okay. The next up, and actually, the $140,000. Some context here. We were actually looking for cost savings because last week we were trying to balance our budget. It's been going up and down like whack-a-mole for the last
Right.
couple of weeks. And James did throw out this option of paying off some one-time costs, tasers and body cams that could save us $34,000 per year for the next 4 years. So the origin of this line item was not an ask, but a creative idea of trying to save some budget going forward by just paying off one-time costs. And this notion of maybe one-time costs having a special, I don't know, category in the
Right.
budget.
So
So it wasn't an ask, it was a creative
Okay.
solution that came up from our discussion.
So this would that save would that so if we add 140 as a one-time expense this year, would it reduce somewhere else in the budget by 34,000
It
this
would
year?
save
Okay.
$34,000 in the budget for the next at least 4 years.
This may be a question for Shan too. Is the lifespan of those tasers and body cams exceed that 4 years?
I believe so, I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, one could get ran over, I understand, but
It's just
okay.
tasers.
Thank you.
Bill,
Yeah, I guess I do the math, 34.
right.
Times
Gonna say that
4 is
too.
136,000, and we're spending 140,000 to get 136.
Well, my 4-year math was probably off. It would definitely, I mean, it's just like paying off a car, or at least you don't pay the, you just don't pay this.
Well, there's also other considerations like inflation. The price of the product might go up every year, would likely, that kind of thing. Right.
I appreciate the creative problem solving, but I'm a little hesitant to add in a big chunk now. Can keep
Right.
little chunks.
The 34,000 is currently
It's
budgeted.
currently in the budget, so there's no harm foul if we don't pay it off early.
So we'd increase it by 140 this year, decrease it by 34. 140, decrease it by 34, and potentially decrease it by that amount, or maybe a little more, a little less in the future. But this year's budget actually would, on paper, would look like it's $105 in the, in the red comparatively.
Thank you.
I think my decision on this one would be based on others' appetite for these one-time expense for funding these one-time expenses this year.
Are we, I know you may not know. Can we pay this next year if we were up? Can we pay, I mean, not the 140, but can we
It seems
stop
like
the
if,
installment 34,000 payments and pay it off?
Yeah, status quo is just to just continue making these taser and
purchases, right?
payments. That's your question. Yes.
So-
Doc?
One second. Actually, Shan, if you're speaking, the folks online can't hear you unless you're on the microphone. Yeah, sorry, Shan was saying something, Kevin, you couldn't hear him because he was out of the
Oh,
microphone.
sorry.
But then I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, you're fine. I was just answering Mike's question. Yes, technically, you guys just did the $34,000 payment per contract.
Regardless.
Yeah.
So if you guys decided to do 34,000 this year and look at paying it off next year, I guess that's up to you. So
Next year, we could pull $105,000 and pay it off. But yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
I like Bill said, I'm not sure the numbers being presented completely add up, but it sounds like it's a relatively simple thing of like, paying in installments versus paying something off quickly. And I think the normal rule of thumb is if you have the savings to be able to, not pay it off quickly, that, over several years, that saves you money. So I would be in favor of doing it if that's the situation.
Anyone else on this?
And I think part of the math, if that 34 is included for this year as well, that would, the overall time period of the financing would be 5 years actually. So I think that's where the math might be penciling out. I'm kind of speculating, but that would be 162, 34 times 5. So it could be a savings of roughly 20,000.
Stop changing my perspective.
What do you think, Mike?
I like saving 20 grand, but 5 years, 20 grand over 5 years is a little bit. This is.
Okay. Okay, sure. Straw poll. Who's in favor of going this route with the 140, opposed to just financing it out over the next 4 or 5 years?
I just
Yes.
need to put a
Yes.
qualifier that if we're trying to reduce this number of outstanding things that are not in the budget.
Yeah.
This would probably be one that I would put on the chopping block.
Right.
If people are comfortable with that bottom line, I'm okay with this.
That's well said. That's exactly what my point was going to be, the same thing.
I guess just one other comment that, we've talked about making a distinction between one-time costs versus ongoing costs.
Right.
And I think that the one we're talking about right now is sort of, maybe it's intermediate between those two, but I think it becomes more of a one-time cost as opposed to an ongoing thing. So.
All right. All in favor of going this route as opposed to the other way? Straw poll?
Yes.
Yes.
2.
I'll say chop it. Solidarity of lowering the outstanding items.
All right. And Bill? Yeah.
Chop this.
Okay. If that doesn't pass, we'll go with the traditional.
Okay. 30.
Yeah. Okay.
Next up, the only reason this is on here because it happened after we submitted to the original budget. Tammy did say that she needs a match for, Bill, maybe you know this, but a 46K match to do some grant funded ground maintenance. So it's just a late arriving item. It's reasonable.
And it is important to note that there is some accounting, house cleaning that I need to get through, and I think it's part of the audit process in 2025. We'll make sure to nail down. But there are some restricted fund balance dollars that should be restricted to the airport. Because there was a period of time where the airport was almost entirely funded by federal funds. And the revenues that the airport was taking in during that time must be restricted to the airport. The FAA regulations and the contracts that we have with them. So ultimately, this expenditure, I see it as much as a decision by the airport director and their board to use those funds that are restricted for their use. And I do believe that is the case. And so it's in some ways, this is just this would be approving the airport using funds that only they can use.
What, and could you tell me what the, what is this, like a 50-50 match, or what is the amount of, the
Tammy
grant?
just pinged me, said it's not a match, it's a reimbursement. I don't know. Tammy, she must be online. Tammy, do you want to come off mute and describe this?
She might
YouTube.
be watching on YouTube, right?
Oh, okay.
And it's my understanding that this could come out of those other funds. I know that we have a special board meeting for the airport set up, and I want to say it's tomorrow, but don't quote me. I'm not looking at my calendar, but I don't understand even why it's on this list if it's going to be coming out of other money. I would say it needs to go in the other column so it reduces that bottom number until we.
That's fair. That's fair. Because if it has restricted funds, it's not even the general fund. Right. But like I say, it was just.
I'm okay with this being in wherever it needs to be.
I'd agree with Bill on this one.
I'm fine with it, with whatever people want to do, but I do think if we're funding some significant part of the airport through general funds, then this is effectively general funds, because an increase or decrease in money coming out of that will have to be matched by an increase or decrease from the general fund. So it's in that sense, it's similar to TRT mitigation money. It's got some restrictions, but it still impacts the general fund.
So we're okay with this.
Yep, I think so.
All right, next
Sounds
up,
good.
Mary McGann's suggestion.
Affordable housing contribution? I'd be in favor of this as a one-time expense.
Can I speak to this? And I think Mary will probably also.
Please do, Trish.
I think we all are looking for solutions. We send these emails back and forth. I know you brought up the VAIL program, and we all kind of like, yeah, this is great. And then it dies because the reality is nobody's picking up the ball and running with it. And P&Z doesn't have the capacity to do it. And so I think if we start putting a little money towards it, and I understand we all want to see brick and mortar stuff on the ground, but the reality is we may have to, I'm not stating this, eventually think about funding a part-time position, somebody who's just looking into programming, anyway. So it's just a thought, because I think we all want it, but nobody really has the capacity to pull it off. The Planning Commission is a volunteer board. They're all very passionate about it. Aaron Lindbergh's the one who brought this up again. And so I do think putting a little money where our mouth is, and then seeing how we could use this money, whether it's the Housing Task Force can delineate that. I think it's important that we start moving. We had some really vibrant programs a few years ago, and then it's kind of just died off. And I think it's time to pick the ball up and run again.
Well said. Thanks, Trish. Mike.
Yep.
This is one of those times where no one here is trying to build housing, affordable housing for our community more than me. Literally trying to build 9, as you all had to vote on my project. But I'm not here to put $100,000 to hopes and dreams. If I would have had line items specifically listed out with affordable housing and where the contribution would go, and I could see the effects of that back to metrics. But I'm not just gonna give $100,000 to hoping to build more houses. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I respect that, Mike, for sure. But I think my point is that this is where hopes and dreams start. You got to start with something like this, and then build on it. And this is the seed that gives life to the oak tree.
I don't mean to take that conversation. I agree we have to start somewhere with the hopes and dreams. this is a hypothetical. I do not want $100,000 for my project. You put $100,000 for my project, it pay the county's impact fees.
Sure.
And I'd have the stuff built. That is a tangible line item that I could put.
No, I
put
understand.
houses down.
I definitely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Got it. Go ahead, Mary.
Yes, I just, I've seen this happen in real life when many of us who have lived here for a long, long time remember how for years and years and years, as long as I can remember, when Red Rock was still up and running the school, we talked about a university, constantly talked about a university. And nothing, and you know, that's all it was. And we went around and around in circles, and everybody said they wanted it, but nothing happened. One year, we just put money aside to make sure that the University of USU happened, that the campus became a reality. We ended up partnering with the city, going for CIB, doing infrastructure, but it started by saying, we want this enough, we're setting aside money to make sure it happens. And I think there is incredible strength in that. I think that pushes things forward in a way that just saying, oh, we want it, doesn't. And if we end up not using it, great. It rolls back into the into our savings. If we come up with something that the commission says, yes, this is good, this is where we want to move, even if it's impact fees, like Mike is suggesting, the money is there, the intention is there. And I think putting the intention that it's not just talk, that we're willing to put money where our mouth is incredibly important.
Bill?
Yeah, we discussed this earlier, and I do know this will have to come before a vote of the commission for this to be approved at a later date as to where that money would be spent. So to me, that gives it a little bit of a cushion, because I just want to be clear that with the new commission coming on next year, whether we feel planning and zoning doesn't have the time to deal with it now, they are going to have time to deal with it in the future. And the county is going to change their housing stance somewhat in the future with the new commission. And I think that the task force that potentially this money could go towards really needs to realize that they're going to be working hand in hand with the county on a different direction that the county is going to want to go. So I'm not in favor of this money going to the task force. If we want to put this money aside and again vote on it later to reduce some costs somewhere that have a direct effect, I have no problem with that. But I just want it on the record that we are looking at a different commission next year that's going to take a different direction on housing.
No one has said this goes to the task force, Bill. That is an assumption you've made.
Mary, the task force has actually reached out to me, so I think it's more than an assumption.
I know they hope for it, but that does not mean that's where it's going to go. This is money to put it out as an intention.
Kevin's got his hand up, and then I'll get to Evan. Thanks, Mary.
Yeah, so I think some of the points I was going to make, others have made. You know, one is that this is addressing what Mike said about it being kind of vague. Yeah, it won't get spent until there's a very specific proposal and some commission in the future votes on it. So we're certainly not locking ourselves into spending for some vague, unspecified purpose. I think the maybe it's the psychology of spending money in the middle of the budget cycle. It tends to happen a lot more easily if the budget already has some money set aside and we don't have to amend the budget to do something that comes up in the middle of the year. So I support it for that reason. I also, we all agree that housing is a very serious issue, just like flood control and things like that. And it's, I think we are beginning to realize that we can't, barely talk about it. One component is maybe being willing to spend some money. So I think that combined with the fact that this would require a second vote before it's actually spent makes me comfortable with it.
Gabe, in years past, we've made contributions to the Community Land Trust.
Yeah,
And Is that no longer in the budget?
That's no longer in the budget. I believe 1 year there was a funding of their executive director position.
That's right. I think that was, we voted on that 2021 for the 2022 budget, I
Yeah.
believe.
And I think we saw direct results from that. I think that
We saw huge results.
yeah, and so I'm comfortable with this, and I would even say, possibly like a standing budget line. That, I don't know what it would be housed under, but rather than it coming up every year after year, I wouldn't mind just seeing it being housed in the budget and living there. So I'm okay with this.
And to Bill's point, it will be a new commission that will ultimately decide where the money's spent.
Yeah, it's not earmarked for anything more than housing. So there's, and if it doesn't get spent, it doesn't get spent.
Right. So how does that work? If it doesn't get spent by the end of the year, does it just revert to the general fund or?
I mean, it's never transferred out of the fund balance.
It's
It's
right.
just one of our underspends.
Got it. Okay, thanks. All right, I'll take a straw poll on that line item. All in favor of the line item, please raise your hand.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I do like hearing that it would be it wouldn't be drawn unless we voted on it again.
Yes, I think that's the case no
I
matter what.
like that. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you in favor then, or?
yeah, I'm in favor.
And anyone opposed?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's an affirmative on that one. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Down to, and this is kind of a late breaking thing here too, not a general fund, line 26 here for the, film and rec.
Oh, yeah.
Slashed some of their budget in trying to balance the budget and it came up to our attention that they really wanted it to go back from the 65, but we slashed it to the original 19,000 that was in 24.
So yeah, to be clear, the 2024 approved budget for this familiarization line for the film commissioner was set at 19,000. The initial proposed 2025 budget was set to 6,500. That wasn't a cut that we made. That was a cut that they proposed to us.
Yeah.
And it's a large enough amount that we didn't want to enter in that change from the proposed. We thought it more appropriate to run it by you all that raising that back up to 19,000 for familiarization, which I believe is scouting and production. That's as much as I know about that activity.
So the request wasn't necessarily itemized. It was just like a working budget for them to plan in the future.
Yeah, that's
So it could be like 10,000 instead of.
Yeah, I mean, so the budget for this year was 19,000. And the actuals right now are at 6,500. So that could, I guess that there's a renewed intention to double down on that activity in 2025, which is the reason for this request.
And these are the rec funds.
Correct.
Rec funds. Oh, yeah. Okay.
And it's, the only reason it's on here is because it's a change since we last spoke.
But
The special request is just,
But those could also go to active trails and transportation.
Correct.
And
Okay.
right now, all of those rec funds are budgeted, or is there rec funds that are just? Okay. Yeah. So pending line 30's discussion, I'm in support of it here, but I think that if we're gonna, can get to that later, but.
Right. Could agree with Commissioner Clapper on that one.
And so if all the rec funds are budgeted now and we're spending more rec funds here, where might that come from?
Fund balance of restricted TRT money that is restricted to rec film convention.
Okay, so there is a balance.
Yeah, we have a balance in that fund. It's not just,
Yeah,
it's budgeted to the zero.
Yeah, I'll touch it as far as the 37% and what's in there.
So wait, if I'm understanding right, so if we do the 12.5 out of the rec fund, that would have to come out of somewhere else. For example, it could come out of the contribution to the rec board or something like that, right?
I think the proposal here is to draw from the fund balance to cover
Okay.
that activity right now.
So the fund balance on that rec film and convention
Right, so
bucket.
currently without this addition, the 2025 proposed of that 1/5 of 37% rec film and convention funds is at 780,000. But our projected revenue is at 597,000.
So we have a little over 100,000 left in that.
Well, 100, no, it's actually the opposite. 180,000 right now is currently proposed to be budgeted out of the fund balance to cover the rec film and convention use.
So the balance is flush.
The balance, I'll touch on.
Okay,
it.
great.
There is a couple million in that balance.
Okay. And that's a couple million apart from,
37%.
Okay. yeah, the whole, got it. Okay, great.
Thanks.
Math, we got more math coming up. Sounds good. Mary, do you have your
But-
hand up?
but-
Did you make a comment?
No, I'm sorry, that was previous. I remember to raise it and I forget to lower it. I
That's okay.
apologize.
Kevin, go ahead.
Okay, well, I forgot to raise my hand, but thanks for recognizing me. So Gabe, did I understand you correctly that this year, we're planning on spending quite a bit more out of the rec film convention item than we're taking in?
Correct.
Okay, and we can do that because we've got a fund balance that you're going to discuss later.
Yeah, I'll touch on that. I have a tab here to display what the fund balance is.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so you guys do you want to vote on that, or do you want to wait until we have a more holistic discussion of the rec expenditure?
Sorry. I'll go for the more holistic TBD.
That's fine. Yeah,
Mike?
TBD, who's on the,
just
Phil.
a couple more line items down. We'll
Yeah, no,
discuss. Yeah.
I agreed there, but, this is to film more of one person working?
No, it's
scouting
for,
and production, or is this bringing on a scout, etc.?
It's to cover costs when potential scouts and filmers come to town.
Okay.
And you want to show them around and do all this thing. It costs money to.
But,
I understand.
thanks.
yeah, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, next up, these are considered change requests, not in the budget, and then it's just, so this is a U extension for a new staff assistant to primarily support the 4-H program, salary and benefits, 52,000 change or 53,000. Gabe, I don't know if you have any justification or I've heard of that.
I sent to the commission justification provided by the forest director and the USU extension director. And that's.
And was there contract obligations with that?
The 25 contract is still being crafted as based on how these discussions play out.
But this would be an annual cost.
This would be ongoing. Good clarification.
This is a hard one for me because I really, I think a lot of this program, it's a hard one, but I do think as we talk about expanding government, this is one where I struggle right now. Maybe in a year where we have stronger growth, but I don't know about this year. And I actually don't, I guess I struggle a little bit and something I could parse out with Corey, but where that 4-H funding comes from as far as USU, anyways, I know that they fund a part of it, but
That is a relevant point to make, not that I'm advocating one way or the other.
Right.
But we do get a lot of bang for our buck as it relates to funding USU extension because it is basically 50-50. And
right.
USU is providing the facility for which they work.
Yep.
And so that salary 35 and benefits 17, I think represents, I'm not sure if I'm misspeaking, but that seems like a lot for half of a staff assistant salary.
Well, I think my understanding is she's already working part-time and they're pushing her to full-time, I
Yeah.
believe is my memory of that. One where I'm wishy-washy.
In a good year, I'd love this. In a bad year, I don't. Or in a down year, I don't. 4-H, good program. And we have a working MOU with with this, I mean, pretty much directly with this program and OSTA to be using, I mean, equine facilities, etc. But I wasn't 4-H a volunteer program. I mean, but 5 years ago. I think there is a big volunteer component to it, and you know, I think that there are other funding options available for them. So you know, it's not like an in-house sort of thing. But to Gabe's point, I think we do get a lot of bang for the buck. I'm not gonna champion this one and go to the mat over it so much as some of the other line items being discussed here, but I'm also not gonna fight it if there's some support for it. So it's
I echo what Evan said.
I think it's down here.
Right.
that's okay.
Kevin?
I was hoping to follow the lead of others, and I was having a little trouble
I
with
think
the audio.
we're all doing that.
Right. Yeah, I guess I would be in the same boat.
Yeah.
It's not.
I guess it does. I mean, yeah, this seems borderline to me. I guess I would want stronger justification before funding it.
Sure. Yeah. Straw poll on this one. All in favor of going for this one? All opposed? Yeah.
Opposed?
Yeah. Okay. So that one. Do you want to? Can we take that out? Change the. There we go. Thank you. All right. On to line 30.
Dark sky, I don't have any background on this.
I asked Gabe to put this on there at a commission meeting several months ago when we were discussing, beginning to actually enforce and implement some of the dark sky regulations. I thought there was general agreement. I think it was maybe a conversation between me and Bill that the county should pick up some of the tab for that. We shouldn't, just to lessen the burden, especially maybe on people have more of a financial need. It could also possibly be structured as an incentive for early compliance. Like, we've got some money to help you shield your light fixtures, but it's first come, first serve. And so I mentioned, I just didn't want that idea to get lost. So this will be similar to the affordable housing money up above, and that is just, we're setting some funds aside, but we're not, it would require a subsequent vote by the commission to decide on some specific way to spend them.
Can I speak to this?
Please do. Trish.
I've actually been working on and off with planning and zoning on this. We brought it to the commission a couple of times. We do have an ordinance in place. Don't actually enforce it. But I'm meeting with Brandon on Wednesday to talk about this again. And I think really what we want to do is take that step to do more education. But I think it would be great within that education if we do have a program laid out like, hey, here's the ordinance, blah, blah, blah. And if you come in now, you can get, so I think this would be a great time for us to put a little bit of money into it. To me, it doesn't have to be a ton this year. And if we see people gobble it up, I mean, it could basically say like we have, limited funds, then we know that people are moving in that direction. And so, Kevin, I don't know what kind of number, I might throw out something like 20 grand or something just to get this rolling. I mean, I think inevitably, even with just the educational piece, we're going to need a little bit of funding to promote this idea that we do have an ordinance in place. We're trying to, we keep having issues, neighbors are battling.
Yeah.
And the reality is we have an ordinance that we do not enforce. And so I think an educational component and incentives would be a great way to start.
Yeah, I was going to go throw out 50,000, but I'm, any amount is helpful.
Mike?
Dark sky lighting assistance could be a known number. With follow up from the education, we could know how many people, one, get the education, two, would be interested in, hey, can I get some county help to put dark sky compliant lights up. We could know that number, but we don't right now. With the education, I mean, put a tally sheet together to give me we need $20,000, we need $50,000. I'd rather know we need $10, but, I mean, I'd rather, know the statistics in, the need for, dark sky lighting, assistance than just throwing money at it.
Mary?
I'll go, yes, I know I'll go back to personal budgeting. Oftentimes, when I'm looking at my budget at the beginning or middle of the year, I know that I want something to happen. You know, say I need to replace windows or I need to do something with my sprinkler system. It does, you know, something. I have no idea exactly what it's going to be, but I know I need to put money aside to accomplish this. And so then you do. And therefore, if it ends up we need to have money for education, the money is there. If we need to have money to incentivize, the money is there. I just think that's a more, a better way to budget and a way that allows you to be, foresee the future and work for a future situation rather than having everything that you have, you know, because it will come up. So you know, I'm happy, I'm comfortable with Trish's recommendation. I think having some money set aside for this is a good idea.
I'd ask who'd be in charge of, and you want to lower your hand, Mary? Just a reminder. As far as the program goes, what department it would be under? Who'd be like responsible
Be under
for?
P and Z or building.
Be under P and Z or building?
But I would assume maybe P and Z. I can talk to Brandon more on Wednesday and,
Okay.
you know, see what his comfort level is with something like that.
Yeah.
If it is an outreach thing, I think P and Z has more in line for public outreach than the building department does.
Yeah, Bill. Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin.
I just wanted to put out that in contrast, a lot of the discussions we've been having about these line items are, yes, it might be nice to have this, but you know, the taxpayer, you know, it's money coming out of the taxpayer's pocket, and is it really worth it? I think except for the education, you know, the incentive component of this line is actually money going back to taxpayers. Of course, that would also come from taxpayers, but yeah, I think the entire community benefits if we have better lighting fixtures, more shielding, dark night skies. But the cost of getting there is going to fall unevenly. You know, some people's fixtures are already compliant, and some people aren't. And I think some of those people that we're hoping will make a change, you know, it might not be easy for them financially. So to me, it definitely makes sense to spend county money to get us to that goal that I think most of us think is a desirable place to end up.
And just to be clear, this money would be for county, not folks inside the city trying to reach those goals.
Yeah, I think that the city would need to do its own program.
Sure, Bill.
Yeah, I think I'm the one that asked that we start considering the fact that if we're going to enforce that ordinance, that we need to put some incentive money aside for it. And I'm supportive of the number that Trish has thrown out there. And I think just the fact that it will have to be voted on in the future is a little bit of a safeguard for it, because we're essentially making decisions here that a different commission is going to have to reconsider. And so that needs to be considered with all of this.
Of course.
So it would,
Go ahead, Mike.
I like the votes later.
All right.
I like the deciding on each fact, not just.
Yeah, and I think
blanket 20,000.
All right, and I think I'm personally comfortable. I think with the amount that Trish suggested, 20,000. It seems like a reasonable amount to get the program going. If it seems like it's really successful, then we can consider re-upping next year or expanding it or killing it. I think that's like kind of a minimum amount to put in it, but it seems reasonable to me. Yeah, Bill.
Well, and again, it's a burden that we're putting on community citizens as a body here. And if we want to put that burden on them, then we need to be willing to incentivize for that to happen, because the majority don't feel necessarily in alignment with this position. So I think if we're gonna go forward, we've got to help the people that we want to come into compliance.
Well, it's certainly an arguable point about the majority agreeing, but it is similar to an unfunded mandate. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. I think we've talked about it enough, right? Everyone seems to have come to a conclusion. All in favor of putting 20,000 towards this program? Raise your
Yes,
hand.
yes.
Wait, excuse me, Mike. You'd prefer more?
No,
Oh,
no. I do like some points. I'd like a little more refinement on that and a little clarification on enforcement and or educational aspect.
I'll try to get you more.
I understand.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so that's in. Thank you.
Okay, so for the next item, there was some discussion on Friday regarding the loss of TRT promotion dollars that have been used to support Fund 47. There is some ongoing clarification, as we discussed, from the state auditor's office that will be sought. Based on the discussions I had with the state auditor, I still think it's fairly clear that this is just a loss of funding.
Right.
And there certainly wasn't a consensus in Friday's discussion, but there did appear to be some appetite for a concept of floating this funding loss for agreeing to float this funding loss for a year, and allowing the Active Trails and Transportation Department to find other sources of funding. There was also some conversation about them scaling back their request, all those sorts of things. So I'll let you all take it from there.
Okay. I'd invite, so again, we've invited Maddie, who's the head of the GCAT, and Anna's here as well, who is the director of the Trail Ambassador Program. And I would invite you guys up if you wanted to answer questions, or if there's any new light that you could shed for us. I know at the Friday meeting, we had some certain commissioners had some questions for you, and if you want to.
Yeah, and I can, let me share my screen. It'll let me. It will. Okay. And I invited Anna because we were working on this over the weekend by phone, and so if anyone has more detailed questions, I want to make sure that there's an authority here.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a spreadsheet that we looked at on Friday. And so,
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, thank you.
Or
It's like,
if you could even blow it up a little bit more. I'm not sure if you could or not.
blow it up.
I can. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I could just make that out, but barely. Much better.
Okay. So a little bit of a recap from Friday, but basically the total amount of establishing and promoting tourism TRT that currently goes towards the program as a whole. A portion of that is for salaries, for the hours worked on specific projects, and then for specific programming costs. That total amount is $121,000-ish. And so from that discussion on Friday, basically I prioritized program cuts rather than staffing cuts. But we ended up doing a little bit of both to try and make things work. So scrolling down here, I don't know how much detail you guys want, but basically this was our process. So we looked at doing transferring. So my salary used to just come out of optional sales tax, and then we pulled from establishing and promoting tourism because I ended up being the project manager for so many projects with economic development, especially with turnover. I kind of just ended up being the person. So realistically, next year, I'm going to be spending a lot of time on our master plan. So I figure it makes sense to just go back to that optional sales tax funding source, which still puts us in below our annual request because a lot of that got offset by grants for 2025. So we're still coming in pretty low on there. I would recommend instituting a mandatory furlough for full-time staff. So that's 10 days unpaid leave, and that'll save us $500. That doesn't include the motorized trail ambassador because that's fully grant funded.
Right.
So that wouldn't save us any money.
Yeah, and that's just Kelton.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we did a sort of a series of budget cuts. So I have on the spreadsheet, which unfortunately, sorry, it's not in the packet because it was just from the weekend. But we have a version 1 where we cut it down to about $92,000. Kind of as the first tier of cuts.
So that's roughly a $30,000 cut. Okay.
Well, no more than that. $60,000 cut. Because it was 157 to begin with.
Ah.
And then that wasn't enough. So then we looked at staffing and we looked at cutting hours out of June. Which is, it is a tricky conversation because June, it's like there's fewer people here, but also those people we do talk to, like they're not necessarily expecting the heat. And so there's a lot of education about, preventing search and rescue incidents or medical incidents.
I know in my business, June can go either way. If it's pleasant at the beginning of June, we can be really busy. And if it's really hot, then it's a tough one.
Yeah. So we did look at June, cutting it down. We have 4 weeks staffed and they're cutting it down to 2. We also do have a few select hours in July, but those ones I think we should preserve because that's basically for Porcupine Rim in the summer, which is like search and rescue, hot spot. So if we don't staff there, we're probably going to be looking at increased costs for those search and rescue operations. And then, so step 4 and then step 5, we went in and we did a version 2. Scroll up a little bit. Version 2 cuts. So that brought it down to 76,000. So basically we cut that budget in half.
Right.
And, talking with Anna a little bit, I think one of the line items we're most concerned about is the budget for water bottles. Because if we cut it down this much, let me find it here. There we go. This leaves us with 1,000 water bottles. And again, that's something where we talk to a lot of visitors who want to go they show up at a trailhead and they're excited and they just don't have any water or any water bottle. And so right now it's easy for us to give them that so then they can go on with their day. So that number, we might run out basically. And so I think we're looking at grants and things to try and plug that gap, but that's just something you guys should be aware of. And we've talked about handing out cheap plastic water bottles, which would be less expensive. But I think the concern there is that it's just going to be adding trash to the trail. So
Single use. Yeah. Whereas the water bottles now are definitely.
Yeah. And I can actually pull up
years.
Hang on 1 second here. Here's what the water bottles like. Yeah. So they're attractive. I think something that came out of the audit is working with economic development to maybe change that branding a little bit. So maybe it says, I don't know, something else about Moab again and again. But I think basically we're trying to make them attractive and that there's something that people will take with them as a memento of their trip and not just toss away. So.
I have a story about that. I actually ran into somebody in Arkansas on the trail who had one of our water bottles. I was like, oh, that's from our program. It's super cool to see. So people do take those home and use them over and over again. It's a great viable water bottle.
Yeah. So
and it is
the goal.
Yeah.
Trying to make it, something. Yeah, a marketing material people will keep. And
addressing the water bottles, I want to say too I think personally that's a fantastic promotional item. I have a mug here, do it like a local. When I got onto the commission back in 2021, Elaine took me on a tour of the Travel Council building, and she was literally gave me sacks of this kind of stuff that they'd spent promotion on to give to people. I bet there's still boxes of these mugs back there, as well as t-shirts. We've all seen them. A lot of those ended up in our community. A lot of them went out and got dispersed and advertised Moab for the foreseeable future. And to me, it's crazy that water bottles don't qualify. Mike.
I understand the talk about the water bottles right here, but in down years and in needed funding years, putting 4 bifold signs out that put it back on some of our visitors and say, hey, you need to bring more water. This is us telling you need to bring more water. I mean, Arches uses it. Arches uses it at every one of their trailheads. It brings us back more in line. Hey, it's a down year.
Mm-hmm.
This year we don't have water bottles, but we do tell you come prepared. I mean, just a different thought path, but we're all recognizing that, 1.9% down. This year we may not give out water bottles. In a flush year, I understand, but we're not there, so.
Gabe, is there any reason that the economic development department couldn't take the water bottle line item and get bottles for promotion and then donate them to the ambassador program?
I suppose I would question whether that would sort of satisfy the spirit of our response to the state auditor's findings.
I think that there are question about, these broad things, that a lot of us are like, well, if we itemize it, we got these TikTok videos and we got these that if they stood in isolation, they might pass. But because they're kind of lumped in with these other projects or objectives, that the larger picture is kind of what's dragging it down. So maybe that would be a kind of clarifying and ongoing things for the future. I think that some of these could check some of those boxes, and there was support at some of these meetings that things like the videos, the water bottles were okay, but
Yeah, and I think it sounds like there's just more clarification, but I think also if the issue is maybe the messaging, like if the messaging isn't promotional enough, right? Like stay hydrated versus like visit Moab or whatever, I think, basically whatever that messaging needs to be to sort of encourage return tourism that also maybe helps people stay hydrated. I think they can definitely meet both needs.
Yeah.
easily.
I was just piggybacking off Jock's point of we had all these mugs in the past from that department that said do it like a local, and I think
Among many other promotional items.
a lot of them were handed out locally,
Sure.
within the county. And so
If you go to other counties in Utah, even, and you go to one of their visitor centers, they just ply you with odd merchandise that has their, Beaver County on it or whatever, Park City, just that or the other. That I would be very surprised if that didn't come out of promotion. But anyway, that's beside the point.
Hello.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Mary, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to lower my hand right now. Yes, we had a tragic incident this year with a person dying from dehydration on the trail. I think anything and everything we can do to provide people with the education and at times perhaps even the tool to stay hydrated is important on many, many levels. So I would like to see that item stay in.
Kevin?
I first, just kind of a technical question. Like on our screen right now, there's a figure of $121,000 that was coming from the tourism established promote budget. But Maddie seemed to be working with a higher figure, like of 150, and I guess I was confused about the relationship of those two numbers.
Yeah, so the 157,900,000 is the our original request for programming. And then this number, the 121,000, is the amount we're decreasing the budget. And so that decrease, we've looked at some options that decrease the programming costs and also decrease the staffing slightly. So here, let me pull up the original.
Okay, but if I'm understanding correctly, there's 121,000 that we thought was going to come from tourism promotion, and now that's in doubt.
For today's purposes.
So I did this as like worst case, like operating under the assumption that that's all gone and made those cuts.
I see. Okay.
So this number I think you're looking at, this is the total original request for programming costs.
Okay,
So
and
of this by half.
of that 157,000, 121 was coming from tourism promotion. Is that correct?
So the 121 is split up between the that section of programming that has the line items, and then also right here that shows what was going into the salaries.
Okay.
So this is the spreadsheet that shows what percentage of hours each employee is spending on managing those projects.
But when you were outlining specific cuts you were making, what was the number your goal number that you were trying to get to? Was it
So we look at the
121
B2
or 70?
Yeah, so, about 77,000.
Okay, and that's some port.
And so like the way we got to that is these steps. So basically going through the least painful to the most painful cuts until we got it down to zero.
Okay. And then finally, Gabe, you mentioned at some point we were going to discuss a fund balance in the rec film convention funds.
Right,
And-
so that currently sits at 444,000.
Okay, so but in that case, isn't an easy solution to this problem is make the easiest cuts that Maddie outlined, and then the remainder we can draw on that fund balance, and so that has zero effect on the general fund, and then next year we need to think about funding things in a more long-term sustainable way. But I thought the reason fund balances exist is to smooth out these little hiccups in the input funding.
Confirm that that does appear to be an option given the current status.
Is this the first year that we've budgeted to draw off that balance in recent history?
Pretty sure. The actuals have always come in pretty well under, and so we've kind of always budgeted pretty strong out of it, and that's been the nature of TRT across the board.
Yeah, I'm in favor of kind of maintaining the current programming rather than upending things on short notice and funding it from the rec funds, whether that's their fund balance or whatever, and not getting into the general funds to support it. That seems like an option. That seems like least painful.
What do you think of that option, Gabe? Do you have a take on it, or?
I think that as long as there's an intention to continue to seek other solutions and creative options for funding that, whatever deficit there might be. And it's not looked at as an ongoing, because I think that becomes a little bit hard.
Sure, right, yeah, of
Right.
course it does, yeah. No, I got you. Yeah. I'd go along with that if that's the path that you think might be the best. Also, I want to congratulate Anna and Maddie on really trimming this down. Obviously, we're shrinking the program considerably with these kind of cuts, and I appreciate you guys putting that on the chopping block. I personally see an immense amount of value in this program, and I'm not interested in seeing it go away in any way, shape, or form. And I think it's going to be a boon to the future. I think we're going to have a great year next year, and the more tourists that we draw in, the more necessary this program is. So I'm very much in favor of maintaining it.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
So is there a question between like change, small change, drastic change, or is that kind of resolve that?
What do you mean, like walking back some of these cuts?
Well, I mean, there's one option here where it's like down to $0.
Well, $0 is what you guys presented, right? When you had the goal of 77, what, 775?
So yeah, that $0 reduction. So that means that we met the $121,000 reduction. So it's kind of counting down each little cut we made until it zeroed out.
Right, but so if we're saying we're willing to dip into the rec funds to support it, I mean, we have the option to spend 121,000 to basically essentially have no changes. Is that correct, Gabe? Sorry. I looked around the rest of the room before you.
Yeah, so just to be, I would propose that maybe we try to do maybe $20,000 of these cuts that were outlined. My vague impression was the first few cuts, were just seemed like a sensible thing. Fund the rest out of the fund balance, but we can't do that every year. So in planning next year's budget, we try to get it so we're drawing, much less out of the fund balance or nothing at all.
There's possible cuts again, like step one, step two.
Also Gabe, like, I mean, I imagine you need a little bit more time to work on this than live in front of us, but if there's like a recommended amount from the fund balance, that would be,
Acceptable,
better.
better.
The best option, and then maybe giving that number to me, and then maybe it's like, it meets somewhere in the middle, but, I imagine you need a little time to like look that
But-
over.
If we implemented step one and step two and essentially cut $20,000 out of the budget.
Yeah, it looks like after step two, so that's cut about 30,000.
And then, I mean, that I would be comfortable with reducing it to that amount. It presents reductions, but it's not super drastic.
Kevin, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just saying, we don't, I mean, I don't think we're supposed to get into the nitty gritty of the budget here. So we could just say, use up to say $100,000 out of the fund balance or, whatever the appropriate number is. And then just how exactly that's, they implement the savings is up to staff.
Does that work for you, Gabe?
Yep. And I'll provide a summary and update.
So you're saying 100 grand?
Yeah, 100 grand from the rec fund balance or from the rec funds to offset the reduction in promotion funds.
In keeping in line with what we've been doing, should we take a straw poll on that so everyone's position is clear? Go ahead, Mike.
Part of the straw poll here. I'm not willing to say yay or nay without exact numbers or line items. Thank you for your sheet here, but I mean, I'd rather be seeing directly how much is coming, and I'm still hoping. You said there was a possibility of other funding sources. I know it was one weekend.
It is hard to
I
call
see
people
that
on a weekend.
possibility, but
Yeah.
do your best. I want to see it.
Yeah, I can tell you that the grant that I've already kind of been in discussion with the administrators about is the RTP grant. That application period is in like February, March, and then it gets awarded in August. So I think for all the grants we're looking at, like we're not going to know if we get them until midway through next year. So I'll be working on it this winter, but they're, we have to go by their schedules for those grants.
Understand. Medium.
Okay. Understood.
I don't love anything, and I don't.
Is there, for seeing the line items, because I do have, so I have the original one, which is in that packet from Friday, and then I do have this like V1, V2.
Yes.
Do you want just me to email that to you? You
Please.
can look it over. Okay.
Yeah, I think
I do like that. Sorry, man. I do like that you put in the work, but I do like a zero bill too. So I'd rather it cost us no money than a bunch.
You don't get a lot for zero.
Yeah, both ends of the scale here.
I think it's important to highlight that kind of like what we're discussing here is doesn't involve using any general funds. And it also doesn't involve removing funds from any of the other rec film and convention recipients. So it's I like that for this year it wouldn't be a tug of war, and I think it's commendable that this whole department is separate from general funds. So I think it's nice to keep it that way so that it doesn't come under any scrutiny.
It also shows a moderate shrinking of the whole program and a willingness to work within the constraints, and it continues internationally acclaimed program that is very beneficial for our locals as well as our tourist economy. So yeah. Bill.
Yeah, I don't see any point in continuing to beat this up one way or the other. There's definitely a disagreement to the value of what this does to the citizens. There is a value for sure, and I'm acknowledging that. I just think that we need to acknowledge the fact that most likely when the new year comes around, that we'll be looking at this again and possibly amending it.
Mike?
Is there any sense of is there gonna be any questioning from the auditor on any of these? Is it going to affect that conversation in any way?
I'll just say that anything that I think could even be approaching a red flag, I won't hesitate to consult with the state auditor's office.
Okay, thank you. If anything does come up, please let me know.
But to that point, the auditor's concerns came from spending promotion money. And what we're discussing is removing any promotion money.
Right, and I'm going to enthusiastically demonstrate to the state auditor's office that we are, complying and carrying forward the spirit that they agree with.
And I think that was the goal of these conversations, so.
Okay.
My assumptions.
I think we're all pretty clear on where we're at. I think I'll just take a straw poll because we've done that with every other issue and just get everyone's opinions on the record. All those in favor of what we just discussed here with bringing it down to what'd you say, Evan, 100,000? Is that right? So definitely maintaining some of the cuts, but maybe walking some of them back. Is that right? So that was your intent of the proposal, right?
Yeah,
I mean, just to make sure we're all on the same page, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Maddie, you outlined ultimately some $70,000 in cuts. Is that?
So the whole amount was 121,000.
Okay,
So
hold on.
we cut out every dollar for promotion.
Okay, so you outlined $121,000 in cuts, and the proposal is to do $20,000 of those cuts, or alternate funding sources, whatever they are, and plan to draw $100,000 from the Rec Film Convention fund balance.
I believe that's where we're at. Yep.
Okay, just making sure.
Thank you, Kevin. All right. Go ahead,
Sorry,
Maddie.
what's the amount in the fund balance? I just don't know.
more than being
Okay.
discussed.
Right.
It's around, it looks like there's going to be a contribution this year budgeted. 444,000 is what I'm currently quoting.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
All right. I'll call for a straw poll. All in favor of what we presented here, raise your hands.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with the whole 121,000.
Thanks, Evan. Mike said he was the middle, pending seeing more information, and all opposed. Okay, so it looks like that's a go on that one.
Looks like our timing's pretty good. I think we're wrapping up the final bits that we wanted to really address today. Feels great.
Okay.
Let you think,
Good
Steve, look
job.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anna, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you guys.
Other
Thanks everyone for
section of that
contributing.
spreadsheet. I would be curious about next steps and if we need to.
No, that's great, Gabe. So do we need to do anything else before we actually pass the budget at the next commission meeting, or what do you guys see as far as where we're at right now?
I think maybe I would want to see the dust settle, let the dust settle by the end of the day today. But I'm feeling like we might not need another workshop this week. But I don't want to speak too soon.
Okay.
I was like, what are you
What's
talking
this
about?
section 8?
This section 8 was just a repeat. We've already agreed on the
Could we bring back the part of the spreadsheet that shows where we're at with the general fund, the one-time expenditures that we were talking about, and where we were at with the money out of the general fund?
right there.
So that 416,876 would be currently proposed to be drawn from fund balance reserves.
And the general fund would be minus 100,000 of that, right?
And the general fund would be, at that point, the budgeted draw from the general fund would raise from 918, plus 416.
But that 416 includes the rec draw.
It does.
So it'd be 316, right?
Right.
317 about, we'll call it.
That's. So 316 plus 918, so that would put us in that 1.25 million budgeted draw from the fund balance.
And also, just for clarity, what we always have a contribution to either capital expenditures or the fund balance each year. What was that?
So that's, but for
That's budgeted, the budgeted contribution.
in 25, it would be, it's zero.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. This year, as actuals are shaking out,
Yeah.
424,000 is the amount that.
424 we put in this year. We increased it by.
But typically that contribution happens during the amendment.
Correct.
Like,
Right,
we never
okay.
really budget to.
Right, perfect. Okay.
And so, yeah, just to summarize, 316 would be added from the draw from the fund balance. That represents a very approximate 2% of the total fund balance reserves held
Great.
in Fund 10 and Fund 34,
Mhm.
and 120,000 of those, as discussed, I've characterized as symbolic earmarks. You know, whether those get actually spent are sort of depending on a number of factors moving forward.
And
Okay.
you had said the 24 contribution to the fund balance was,
424,000.
yeah, so I mean, really, we're still
up.
putting money in the bank.
All right. Anything else, gentlemen? Before
One last
we?
thing.
Yeah, sure.
TRT, we still talked about there's that TRT promotion spend. Yeah, please.
Oh yeah.
There's that item and there's a little bit of an update to that conversation. Hopefully we can get to a conclusion here.
Okay.
Just real quick, current fund balance in Fund 16, that's where TRT,
Promotion.
TRT promotion dollars are the 37%, are held. 20% of that is 444, so that's where I'm getting the fund balance, restricted to rec film and convention use. We have a budgeted contribution to the fund balance this year of 238. The current 25 proposed budget includes a draw of 1.3 from that fund balance. So the overall net at the end of 25, if we were to spend the proposed 25 full amount, which that's never actually happened, but not to say that it would. That would leave at the end of 25. That would bring that fund balance down to a little bit over $1 million.
Okay.
So that's just some context there as far as those funds.
Great.
And then on the promotional spend, there was the co-op grant that I was getting that was really confusing the situation. And it actually it's accounted
That's
for
right.
in
Okay.
other expense and revenue lines.
Was that 212.5 or something like that?
212.5. So I've removed that from this discussion, and I think it simplifies the discussion quite a bit. And so just to review, currently entered in the tentative in a line called paid media, which I think it's not the entirety of promotional efforts done by the Economic Development Department, but it's the lion's share of what you might consider traditional advertisement spending.
Right.
And I've found the lines that are included in that line as far as best as I can in terms of a one-to-one equivalent to what the Travel Council Advisory Board recommended. That's 1 so that's 1.3 versus 1.6. Being the difference between the proposed by the Economic Development Department for 2025 and the proposed by the TCAB for the 2025. There is this proposed that's currently entered in the 2025 budget. So part of this draw from the fund balance, so a big part of it, it could be considered as this rebranding effort that's currently in the budget at $775K. Whether that's equivocated with traditional ad spend. I think that there could be multiple arguments for that. So I think in this last 5 minutes, if y'all, if we maybe just decide to stick with this 1.35 proposed spend for 2025, or include a little bit more, because I think Ben Frederickville has stated that with his current staffing capacity and talents, they can put out more ad spend with the capacity that they have.
He's got some good people over there for sure.
And then the TCAB, they want 1.6.
So the difference is roughly, and what made up that 330,000?
Sorry, I don't have that.
Okay. It's just whatever. Yeah.
I'm fine with going with the TCAB's recommendations.
I'd be comfortable with that as well. And I think the rebranding efforts And that the TCAB also gave the thumbs up to the rebranding effort. Am I correct? I think. Can't remember. That's okay.
I don't want to say what.
They did, yeah.
Yes.
Ben Alter says yes. Great.
So, and so we'll just bring the 1358510 in that line, in that paid media line. We'll make sure that that's aligned with the TCAB recommendation.
Okay, and if that's the case, then that would leave about $750,000 in the fund.
Yeah, if the rebranding effort is executed and all proposed spend is actually executed.
So I just pulled up the TCAP letter and theirs did include the rebrand. And so if we include that, we're looking at a $2 million spend, more or less, which is
2 point.
more than what they had. Sorry, I got lost in.
So the 1.6, well,
Uh,
where I got to the 1.6 from the letter is like not very. I had to go
Gotcha.
deeper into what our paid media line actually encompasses and sort of one-to-one that. It's not perfect, but I tried to make an effort to really compare them.
thanks.
Okay. Okay, so what Trish proposed was going with the full 1.682.
And I'll try my best to summarize that change with further breakdown in detail as we're talking with the letter and, how that is actually broken down at an itemized level. I can do that.
Do you guys want a straw poll on that number?
Quick question.
Sure.
TRT restricted promotional funding.
Mhm.
That's where this is coming from.
Yes.
As I'm pretty sure, tribal council's recommendation, we're going with, Trish's recommendation was one
1.6.
$1,682,000.
Right.
Okay.
Straw poll. Trish isn't here, but
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
say,
all right, I'm in favor as well. Trish already proposed it, so I'd assume that's the case. Bill, do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I will support the TCAP recommendations and then just put out there that we're going to take a real close look at how all of this is spent in the new year and where it's going.
Kevin? Evan?
I guess I got lost in the line 9. That was what Ben had originally proposed. And that, yeah, so I guess I'm leaning towards the what our staff budgeted rather than the volunteer board, so.
Okay, well, it looks like
Okay.
there's clarity there for what to include and,
I think so.
and I'll reach out by end of day today or tomorrow morning, in case I see there are already gaping holes here, but, at the moment, I'm feeling, optimistic.
Okay, great. Do you potentially foresee like needing a budget workshop before that commission meeting where we actually pass the budget, or, I mean, like that day
I wouldn't
potentially,
want-
or
Yeah, that could be the case.
like an hour before, just go over everything, or
Yeah.
it's
If,
yeah, you
if
call it.
needed, maybe that would be the best route.
Okay, we have our agenda reviews on Wednesday, so if you want to reach out to us before then, I think we could
yeah,
accommodate that.
I'm optimistic 1 hour would be great, but be realistic.
Okay.
I know we're up against the time. Did we need to look at that capital stuff, or was that just a summary for?
No, summer is,
Okay.
summer, it's just been on there, so.
Okay.
Okay.
We're agreed to it.
All right, looks like we reached a good stopping point. Okay, I'll adjourn. No, actually, we'll just recess for 5 minutes and come back. Hopefully, our county attorney will join us in the next few minutes, and we can get on with our next